Hi guys, today we're going to take a look at some of the announced Guild War changes for epicseven, give some of my thoughts on it, my predictions for the future, and without further ado, let's get into it. The first thing we need to talk about, of course, is the new goals that they have, and rather than try to explain or think of what they're thinking of, or predict what they're thinking of, let's just read what Smilegate themselves have discussed. They say, Guild War has been a long beloved PvP piece of content in epicseven, with many heirs engaging in intense battles. True. While this beloved feature remains vital to our game, we've identified several areas that need enhancement to provide our heirs with an even better gaming experience. This upcoming Guild War revamp focuses on creating more strategic battles, diverse combat scenarios, improved communication features, and better rewards. And they also announced that this is going to be released on the 13th of March, so if I'm not mistaken, roughly 3 or so weeks from now. Now, they also announced that a lot of what you're going to be seeing is, well, development images, but let's just get straight into it. First and foremost, this little screenshot that we've got here looks pretty cool. Honestly, I don't know if this is going to be what we see in game, but if it is, I'm not really opposed to it. This looks pretty sick. Now, moving along to this, they also announced that the matchmaking range is not exclusive within regions, except for China, who, well, they're just playing against themselves. However, for the rest of the regions or servers, I think this is pretty cool. Now you get to see what other regions or how other regions perform, and in general, having access to other opponents and not just the same couple guilds is exciting. Now they also announced that because of the the grouping of the servers together, it also means that the war start is going to be unified to be the exact same time at 3 UTC. Don't ask me what time that is because I have no damn idea. Anyways, moving along though, they also announced the changing for the matchmaking, which is now so that, or in order to give us a more diverse and more fair playing field, you can only match against the same opponent up to 2 times, presumably in a season. Oh yeah, it says within a single season. Now, of course, this means that you might change, or the actual the landscape or the performance or the actual experience for Guild War will change for especially the top tier guilds, where you can or where you'd imagine that you may regularly fight against similar guilds or similar level or similar ranked guilds. And I think this is a decent thing. I don't think anyone really wants to fight against, you know, like the Talentlesses or the Palladias for the 18,000th time in a row. But with that being said, we also have war progression system changes, where now they essentially have, I guess, changed some of the formatting, but what they describe is that the current guild war system rarely sees complete stronghold destruction except among top tier guilds. True. And in its current form, destroying 2 fortresses grants access to the stronghold, but fully demolishing it requires considerable effort. Also true. They have then decided, or this is where it's actually kind of funny. They say this has led some guilds to place weaker members in what should be their final defensive position. If you've ever been a guild manager, or if you've ever run a guild yourself or seen this, it's actually very funny because it's kind of like a cone of shame, but it is what it is. I think it's kind of funny that they admitted this. Now, to detract or to stop this issue, however, they're implementing structural changes to the placement and war progression system. Cool. Now the way that the fortress system works is that instead of having 3 fortresses and 1 stronghold, there's now a system of 3 fortresses, central, right, and left. In order for you to get to the central fortress, both the left and right fortresses must be destroyed first, but each fortress has 1 stronghold, 2 defense towers, and 10 outposts. So essentially, from what I take, or from what I gather from this, you have to eventually, or each fortress, or I should say each specific stronghold, will eventually get hit. It's not as though you are like free basically to dump the weakest player in some hidden pocket of your your base layout. Now, to be clear, they also mentioned that the attacking of the stronghold requires the destruction of both defense towers, while defense towers can be targeted regardless of outpost status. This doesn't really change too much, but it does make it so, again, as they mentioned from this, you won't have to basically or you won't have the ability to hide players in certain locations, which again just sounds more fun than, again, like, you know, weaseling out or trying to, I guess, cowardly take away from one member. Whatever the case is, that's not like that big a deal for like overall play, but I think if they're going to standardize and professionalize the system as a whole, I think this is fine. Now, interestingly, they also do mention, or well, in addition to showing like screenshots of like exactly what would happen, they also changed the health of defense towers and strongholds to accommodate for the new battle mechanics. And similar to this, again, they've allowed guild captains and the vice captains the ability to position their forces through, again, the different defense towers, central fortresses, left and right fortresses, etc. Now, the thing that I think is very interesting now is that they've introduced a league system with additional rewards. Now, this is pretty cool because they've essentially standardized this to some of the other systems in the game, not necessarily in similar ways, but as you're seeing right now, the legend status or the legend status or legend ranking for guilds is now in the top 1 to 32 of guilds, with there being 12,000 war points. And for this, you are given a 5 times mystic ratio, though this is basically the same all the way up until challenger. Now, again, this is a little bit different, or this isn't, I would say, too different from what people or most people would expect. If this ends up changing, I would be surprised. I'm not sure if this is exactly the way that it that the system had I should say, I'm not exactly sure if this affects the way the old system was in terms of being in a guild that is capable of receiving 5 times mystics, as you see right here. Up until challenger, basically you're still receiving 5 times mystics. I can only maybe see this harming really inactive or very low level guilds, which honestly, though, that kind of stinks. I've always kind of thought that it's a bit weird that in order to receive the full rewards, you're looking for like the most AFK, or you would for some reason be looking for the most AFK, the smallest, and like maybe the most obscure guild, especially when you're trying to get all rewards. Whatever the case is, I won't comment too much about this. For whatever case it may be, if you're in a smaller guild, or if you're in a guild that doesn't receive 5 times, this is now the new standard for when you would be able to receive 5 times mystic reward ratio, which does make things a bit more clear, as I think most people were unaware of exactly what determines whether you get 5 times or not. Now, in addition to this, they also have bonus rewards, including the frames previously rewarded to guilds that place in 1 to 3 in the first and third position. I do think this would probably make a couple of the people that were vying for that 1 to 3 spot a bit more upset, but whatever. Honestly, this is kind of a smaller issue. It's a very tiny fractional concern for players. Honestly, if you're upset that 32 other people could be competing for a frame, sounds a bit selfish, to be honest. I think this is cool. The prestige of it is maybe a bit more a bit more, or maybe has dropped a little bit more, but just consider the fact that since now all players from all servers except for China are now competing against each other, this does feel a little bit more prestigious and a bit more competitive, I would say. And we'll go into more why it's also competitive later, but in addition to the bonus rewards here, you also now have access to commander's armbands, which is cool. Now, in addition to all of this, at the champion rank, they've now described that formerly, where in the 33 to 100 you were given rewards for the or I should say for the Emperor League's reward, they are now placing the 4 to 30th rewards in this bracket, but now in the 101th or 101st up until the 10% or top 10% of all guilds, you're now receiving the 31 to 100 reward, which is an additional frame, which does give access, I think, to frames to a lot of guilds that otherwise wouldn't have access to it, which is additionally cool. Now, beyond this, they are also adding things to the member shop, which is cool. However, there have been some concerns by members that have seen exactly what these rewards are, but specifically to point out what's been added, it includes things like the greater modification gem boxes, 85 equipment accessory chests, and again, to be honest, these sort of rewards are decent, especially if you're someone that's annoyed at the fact that you're unable to, well, get the perfect reroll on a substat. But before we even go any further on this topic, I do want to say that it feels a little bit odd that despite there being maybe commentary or feedback or responses and just just overall, like an overall abundance of feedback, it feels like, to the epicseven developers for mod gems to be kind of quality of life, or to be improved, such that you don't have to deal with like it. Oh, weird. Sorry about that. Back to Donkey Kong music. In any case, it feels like the fact that instead of trying to improve these modification gems and try to make it so that modification or substat changes are easier and less punishing, it feels like what epicseven has done instead is essentially just given us more of them so we can deal with more of the RNG. I can't really tell if that's like the route that is really ideal for this situation. It feels like instead of saying like, hey guys, we know you really hate RNG, but instead of removing RNG, or instead of like getting rid of this mechanic that feels very frustrating, we're going to give you more opportunities to avoid it without actually getting rid of it. Now, even to this point in the past, when people would avoid, or when people would talk about the 15% not being removed, the argument was always that, well, epicseven's development, or their system, their game engine, was built with 15% or RNG in general being built into this. But the modification gem selection system, or the modification stone system in its entirety, was released or designed after the game engine was designed, and the RNG of these systems can definitely be adjusted, or the RNG removed. This isn't like a baked in core fundamental system that you could maybe argue needed to be changed. This is just like an outward, hey, we're never gonna change the modification gem thing, and well, you know what, if it feels like you don't have enough gems, or if it feels like the system is frustrating, well, here's just more gems for you to maybe feel less frustrated, which is like a band-aid fix to an otherwise very annoying system. For context as well, I've really thought this system out, or I've considered the possibilities. Even if people were going to suggest that later on these greater equipment gems don't have any usage and they'll just get filled in your inventory, that's just not really even the case. Because even for myself personally, there are times where I'll use the modification gem chests to change old pieces that I've modded in the past to then adjust or multiply to something new. For instance, I have some faster speed swords that I've rolled crit damage, or rather I should say I've rolled attack percent onto, and instead of it being attack percent, if I, let's say, don't end up using that piece on someone like Sid or some of the faster units like Ran, I'll switch it over to something like HP if I want to, say, give it to someone like ML Shu, or give it to another HP crit fast based unit. The point is that there's always a use for this, and I don't really understand why they're going with this route specifically. Apologies, tirade over, or tangent over. It just feels a little bit weird to me that this is these are the two rewards that they've landed on. A completely RNG system where you get, I guess, a chest. I don't know to what extent or how many chests we'll be getting, but these 85 equipment chests will usually give you some nonsense anyways. They'll give you a flat HP and crit chance, crit damage, attack percent, neck, or they'll give you a pair of boots with I don't know, flat HP, and then it's unusable, which is why I just feel like these two rewards don't feel amazing. One is a band-aid fix for a problem, even if you want to call it that. Even if you don't call it that, it's a band-aid fix for a system that they just aren't addressing. And the other is a completely RNG chest that, honestly, even if you get something good from it, it's completely RNG, and I don't think is something that a lot of people will be jumping for joy at every time that they see it. Regardless, I could be wrong. If it's something that you guys appreciate or you enjoy, by all means, that's totally fine. That's just my initial thoughts on it. Now, in addition to this, they've also added other quality of life features, like a note feature on some of the towers. This is amazing, mostly because having to bounce between discords or use the in-game guild chat can sometimes get cluttered because people talk, or you don't have Discord, or you don't use Discord. So having an in-game notification hey, it's a 320 ran, or it's a slow ran, or it's a secret art storm character or thief is really nice. So hey, big ups to Smallgate. This is a well-awaited change. Big fan of this. Now, in addition to this, the other major change that they've announced, or that we had announced before, is the Guild War function, which I think is amazing. Again, disconnecting, I think, is something that happens to everyone at some point, as you may sometimes do guild war in the car, in the train, or like on the train, wherever it is, or you could just lose connection for whatever reason. So this is amazing. Thank you so much. But in addition to this, they're changing the way that the MVP selection is chosen or is working or functions currently. Whatever the case this ends up being, we'll see. Honestly, the MVP system right now has always basically been reserved for one of the fortresses or towers. I suspect that this will still basically stay the same. I cannot imagine that like a small tower or a non-leader position or a a big tower position would get MVP. However, I have seen it sometimes, but usually in those cases, like the towers or the fortresses are like completely AFK, or like no one ends up attacking the fortresses for some reason, which I think is pretty rare. Now, in addition to this, it also says that in order to protect strategic information of top tier guilds, season logs will not be visible when matched against Emperor League or higher guilds. Now, this is pretty interesting, to be honest. However, I think rather than have the intended effect that this should or would have for the top of top guilds, I think what is essentially going to happen, especially for guilds like Talentless or some of the top guilds, Palladia, whatever guild is at the top currently that you want to talk about, I think essentially people will just ask for screenshots, or everyone will take screenshots of like their logs or their performances, and I don't know, through maybe some third-party API or some third-party site, everyone will just have all the logs anyways, but now compiled on some other site for the purpose of finding additional season logs or matches. In addition to this, though, like the season logs may be kind of annoying in some cases to deal with. I do understand the idea behind this, which I think is fine. However, there's also, you know, sites like Fribbles that give you sample layouts or sample builds or team layouts that have their listed percentage win rates, which is going to kind of combat this or maybe reduce the effectiveness of this. So it kind of is what it is. But for what it's worth, if you just notice, or if you could have otherwise just seen that someone lost using a fast team because maybe like, oh, you know, he decided to cleave with a team that should be unlosable unless if like the ran is slow, for instance, or, you know, something like that, then this is where I think the effect of the hidden defense team mechanic would come into play. However, whether people will be doing something like that specifically, or whether it'll actually get boxed out or removed entirely, is up for debate. Now, they have also mentioned that the grit season ends on the 7th of March, and again, a week after, they'll have the revamp. But in addition to this, they've essentially said that they want to also include a tournament match during the preseason, assuming that you are one of the Legend League guilds. Honestly, I'm not exactly sure for like in what capacity or in what way this will actually take place. I don't know if it's going to be a stream. I mean, as you guys may or may not have seen, like we haven't seen an epicseven stream in God knows how long. Presumably, maybe they'll make an event around it. The game has otherwise kind of been on full quiet mode since the World Championship, basically. I think that was the last time they even released anything related to the epicseven like stream or Twitch page, or even the YouTube stream page. And with that, well, if they end up doing the tournament, that's cool. But it looks like there's going to be a match prediction event. New honor rewards if you perform in the tournament sounds cool, but whatever they end up doing, we'll see. In any case, though, guys, that's going to be it for today. Again, things are subject to change, images are subject to change, and with that, feel free to take everything with a bit of grain of salt, or with a grain of salt in general. But otherwise, thanks again for watching, everyone. Hope you guys enjoyed, hope you guys learned something. If you did, make sure to check out the rest of my socials. And yeah, thanks again for watching, all you epicseven lovely lads and laddies, and I'll see you guys all next time. Check out the rest of my socials, leave a comment, subscribe, all that jazz, and yeah, I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye, good afternoon, see ya.